All right, so ready to get real about marriage?
Yeah, let's ditch the Hollywood fantasies.
Exactly. Today we're diving deep into Marriage Be Hard by Kevin and Melissa Fredericks.
You know, they're a real-life couple who don't sugarcoat anything about marriage.
Oh, they keep it 100.
Yeah.
Which is exactly why we're talking about it. The Fredericks are all about honest communication, and they don't shy away from the work it takes to build a lasting relationship.
Totally.
And today we're going to unpack 3 big conversations every couple should be having.
Expectations, sex, and roles.
Yep. Starting with expectations.
Mm-hmm.
The book actually calls them silent relationship killers.
Right. And it's so true. I think we often go into marriage with all these ideas about how things should be.
Yeah, like based on how we grew up or our past relationship.
Yeah, exactly. Or even movies.
Oh, yeah, totally.
But we don't always say those expectations out loud. And that's where things can get messy.
Because then resentment builds up, right?
Exactly. It can be a recipe for disaster.
And it's funny because, when you're dating, everything's kind of a highlight reel.
It is. It's like you're both on your best behavior.
Right. But then you get married and the sweatpants come out.
Literally and figuratively.
Totally. And suddenly, all those unspoken expectations about like chores or finances or even just how often you go out, it can cause some serious friction.
Oh, absolutely. Because marriage, it's like the full, unedited documentary.
That's such a good way to put it. So what are some of those common unspoken expectations that you see tripping couples up?
Well, I think chores are a big one for sure.
Oh, yeah.
And how you spend free time. But it can also be like bigger things,
Like what?
Like career aspirations, how much your in-laws should be involved, or expectations around having children.
Yeah, the big stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And the Fredericks actually had a big clash about this when Kevin's comedy career started taking off. Melissa wanted more stability.
Yeah, I remember reading about that.
Yeah, and Kevin felt like she wasn't being supportive.
It shows you how deep those expectations run, right? Even when we don't realize it.
Absolutely.
So how do we even figure out what our own expectations are, let alone talk about them with our partner?
Well, the Fredericks have some really good advice for this. They say couples should ask themselves some key questions.
Okay, like what?
Like, what assumptions did I bring into this relationship? Are they even realistic? Have they been met? And this one's my favorite. What's been even better than I imagined?
Oh, I like that last one. It's not all doom and gloom.
No, it's important to acknowledge the good stuff, too.
For sure. But for those trickier areas, like the unmet expectations, how do they suggest you approach those conversations?
Well, they say that checking in with each other regularly is really important.
Like it's not a one-time thing.
Right, exactly. Because as your relationship grows, your needs and expectations change, too.
Makes sense. So you have to keep talking about it.
Exactly. It helps to prevent resentment from building up over time.
That makes a lot of sense. It's all about being open, right? Like it's okay to say, hey, this isn't really working for me anymore.
Yeah, but that can be hard to do.
It can be. So how do you bring up those touchy subjects without, starting a fight?
Well, the Fredericks are big on using I statements.
Oh, good one.
Yeah. So instead of blaming your partner, you focus on your own feelings.
Okay, so give me an example.
So instead of saying, you never do the dishes, you could say something like, I feel overwhelmed when the kitchen's a mess. Can we maybe find a system that feels fair to both of us?
Oh, yeah, that's way better.
It's about working together, not against each other.
Collaboration, not confrontation.
Right. But, even with good communication, sometimes those conversations can still get heated.
Oh, absolutely. It happens.
And that's when it's important to have good conflict resolution skills,
For sure. Like, what are some good tips for that?
Well, the Fredericks talk about active listening, taking breaks when you need them, and even seeking professional help if things get really tough.
Those are all great points. So, to our listener, think about those expectations you might be holding on to, the ones you haven't said out loud.
Yeah.
Are they realistic? Are they causing tension? It might be time to have that open, honest conversation. It might feel a little awkward at first, but trust me, it's worth it in the long run.
So, it's interesting how those unspoken expectations, they can even impact, like, the most intimate part of a relationship.
Sex.
Exactly.
And the Fredericks don't shy away from that at all.
No, not at all. They're super open about their own experiences.
Which I thought was so great.
Yeah.
Because it makes it feel so relatable.
It does.
Like they talk about how even though they waited until marriage, Melissa was actually kind of uncomfortable with sex at first.
Yeah.
Which just goes to show, like, even when you think you know someone so well,
right.
things can change.
Especially when it comes to something as personal as sex.
Totally. And Kevin even admits that he had different expectations about, like,
Mhm.
how often they would,
Yeah, the frequency.
the frequency,
Yeah.
which I think is something a lot of couples deal with.
Yeah, probably.
And it just highlights how important communication is,
Oh, absolutely. In every aspect of the relationship,
even in the bedroom.
especially in the bedroom, right?
Yes.
And I think one thing Melissa talks about that I found really helpful is, like, if your desire is lower,
Yeah.
be honest about it with your partner
Yeah.
and make it clear that it's not a rejection of them.
Which is so easy to do.
Oh, it is.
Like, you start feeling bad about yourself.
Right, like, what's wrong with me?
Exactly.
But it's really not about that at all.
No, it's about understanding each other and finding that balance.
And she even talks about, like, even when you're not necessarily, like, in the mood,
Yeah.
try to be open to it anyway.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because sometimes...
I mean, I get it, but
Yeah.
it doesn't sound super romantic.
But what she's saying is that, like, that act of being willing to connect physically, even if you're not feeling, like, super turned on, it can actually reignite the spark.
Oh, okay.
It's about making that effort and showing your partner that you care about their needs.
So it's like making that choice to be present, even if you're not, like, swept away by passion in the moment.
Exactly.
That makes sense.
And they also talk about how, it's not all on one person.
Right.
Like, the partner with the higher libido also has to be understanding
Yes.
and not take those rejections personally.
Yeah, it goes both ways. It all comes back to communication.
It really does.
Whether it's expectations, chores, sex,
Yeah.
being able to talk openly and honestly is just, like, the foundation of a good relationship.
It is. And the Fredericks remind us that it's a process. Like, it's
Yeah.
not a one-time thing. You have to keep having those conversations.
Because things change.
Our needs change, our desires change.
All the time.
All the time.
So, for our listener, how do you and your partner handle those conversations about intimacy?
Yeah. Have you found a way to, like, communicate effectively?
What works for you?
It's worth thinking about.
Yes.
Because just like with expectations,
Yeah.
open communication is key to keeping things healthy and,
Happy.
and happy in the bedroom.
Yes. So we've covered a lot of ground here. Expectations, sex, and now those ever-evolving marital roles.
It's like the trifecta of marriage challenges, right?
Pretty much. And if there's one thing we've learned from Kevin and Melissa Fredericks, it's that marriage, it takes work.
It does. It's not about finding that perfect person or living in a rom-com.
No, definitely not. The Fredericks are all about being realistic. It's about showing up every day, even when it's hard.
Even when you're annoyed. Even when you'd rather be doing anything else.
Exactly. Because let's face it, those moments happen in every relationship.
Oh, they do. All the time.
And that's where communication comes in. Being able to express your needs, listen to your partner's perspective, and find those compromises.
Because it's not about one person being right or wrong.
No. It's about finding solutions that work for both of you.
And I think the Fredericks really challenge that idea of finding the one. It's more about building a partnership.
Yeah, it's a conscious choice you make every day.
That's a journey. Just when you think you've got it all figured out, life throws you a curveball.
Oh, always. A new job, financial stress, a global pandemic even.
And you have to adapt, renegotiate those roles and expectations.
Which brings us right back to communication. It's not a one-time fix. It's something you have to keep working at.
It's like a muscle you have to keep exercising.
I love that analogy.
Mhm.
And it's not just about talking. It's about really listening, trying to understand where your partner's coming from.
And being willing to meet them halfway.
Exactly.
And the Fredericks have this one idea that I found really powerful.
Okay, tell me.
They challenge us to look at all those expectations we bring into marriage.
The ones from our families, society, all those romantic comedies.
Exactly. And ask ourselves if they're really serving us.
That's such a good point. Like, are we living out someone else's script?
Or are we creating a marriage that's truly authentic to us, to who we are as individuals and as a couple?
That's a big question.
It is. But imagine if we all sat down with our partners and had that honest conversation about what we really want without all those external pressures. What kind of marriage could we create?
Wow, that's powerful. So for our listeners out there, if you're feeling stuck, unfulfilled, maybe it's time to hit pause and have that conversation.
Strip away all those preconceived notions, those expectations, and just connect.
Because when you get to the heart of what really matters, that's where the magic happens. That's where you find that deep connection that can get you through anything.
Absolutely. So yeah, if you're looking for a real, raw, relatable guide to marriage, check out Marriage Be Hard.
It's a great reminder that love isn't always easy, but with communication, vulnerability, and a commitment to growth, it can be the most amazing journey.
So put away those phones, grab your partner, and get talking. You might be surprised by what you discover.
And that's a wrap on our deep dive into Marriage Be Hard.